think women will do this. When you stop reaching out, she returns to herself. When you create space, she turns inward and reconnects with the deep well of love and power that resides within her. She realizes her wholeness comes from her, not anyone else. She seeks balance. As the silence stretches, she harmonizes her energy. She may feel the imbalance at first, but soon finds her footing, realigning her focus to what brings her joy and peace. She lets go of resistance. Instead of chasing, she embraces the flow of life. She knows the universe works for her highest good, and what is meant for her cannot miss her. She chooses self-worth. With every passing moment, she learns that she deserves effort, consistency, and love that feels easy and natural. She no longer settles for crumbs. She grows in grace. Silence becomes her teacher, showing her where her heart needs healing and where she can rise stronger. She forgives, not to condone, but to free herself. She expands her focus. Where once her world may have revolved around your connection, she now sees the infinite possibilities life offers. New hobbies, friendships, and dreams. She reclaims her power. When you stop reaching out, she no longer looks to you for validation. Instead, she becomes her own source of confidence and inspiration. She's clearer boundaries. This space teaches her the importance of clarity and self-respect. Moving forward, she knows what she will accept and what she will no longer tolerate. She allows closure within herself. Rather than waiting for external answers, she gives herself the gift of closure, finding peace in her own heart and moving forward with dignity. She opens to new possibilities. When one door closes, she knows another is opening. With every moment, she steps closer to the love, joy, and abundance that were always meant for her. In her own time, she rises, she transforms, she shines. And in that light, she finds everything she was looking for within herself. When space is created, the quiet invites her to look within. Her heart, once focused outward, begins to shift inward. She sees that she has given so much of herself away, pouring into others while leaving her own well empty. Now, with this space, she feels the pull to nurture herself, to fill her cup with her own love, her own care, her own. This time is not about loneliness, but about rediscovery. She reclaims the parts of herself she had forgotten, the parts that had been tucked away in the pursuit of connection. In this rediscovery, she learns to celebrate herself again, to honor her dreams, her feelings, and her voice. The power she thought she had lost begins to return. It moves softly at first, like the sun rising after a long night. She begins to trust herself again, to rely on her inner wisdom, knowing that her intuition has always been her greatest guide. There is a deep and quiet joy in realizing that she is whole, that nothing is missing, nothing needs to be fixed, and nothing outside of her can complete her. This realization is not a rejection of others, but an embrace of herself. She finds beauty in solitude. It becomes her sanctuary, her sacred space, to heal, to dream, and to grow. What once felt like an absence now feels like a gift, a chance to reconnect with her essence. In this space, she begins to nourish her spirit. She breathes deeply, she moves freely, she allows herself to feel. Each moment becomes an act of self-love, a reminder that she is worthy of the same care she so easily offers to others. The more she looks inward, the more she sees her strength. She remembers the times she has risen, the battles she has fought, and the grace she has carried through it all. She recognizes that she is, and always has been, the source of her own light. She begins to shift her focus to what truly matters. Her energy, once scattered, now feels aligned. She invests in what feeds her soul, what lifts her spirit, and what brings her peace. The noise fades, and what remains is her truth. With each passing day, she feels more grounded, more centered, more herself. The love she sought externally has taken root within her, and it grows with every breath, every thought, every moment of self-awareness. She is no longer searching, for she has found everything she needs in her own heart. In the stillness, she feels the uneven weight of emotions she had carried for too long. The silence shines a light on the imbalance she had once ignored. And though it feels unsettling at first, it becomes the beginning of her realignment. She takes a breath and acknowledges that this discomfort is not the enemy, it is her guide. She begins to listen to what her body and heart have been telling her. The exhaustion from overgiving, the longing for connection, the need for rest, all of it rises to the surface. She does not run from it. Instead, she embraces it with compassion, knowing it is the first step toward harmony. Her days, once consumed by outside distractions, now feel open and spacious. She starts to focus on what truly nourishes her, whether it is a quiet walk in nature, the soft pages of a favorite book, or the sound of her own laughter. She gravitates toward the small joys that bring her peace. In this journey toward balance, she releases the need to control everything. She recognizes that her energy is sacred and it must be spent wisely. She learns to say no without guilt and yes without fear. Slowly, she begins to find a rhythm that feels right for her. The silence no longer feels like a void, but a gift. It is here that she learns to trust herself again, to hear the steady pulse of her inner voice. This voice, often drowned out by the noise of the world, now guides her toward what feels good, what feels real, and what feels true. As she seeks balance, she lets go of the parts of her life that drain her. Old habits, outdated beliefs, and unbalanced relationships begin to fall away, leaving room for what uplifts her. This release is not easy, but it is necessary, and she feels lighter with each step. Her focus shifts from striving to being. She no longer measures her worth by how much she achieves or how much she gives. Instead, she prioritizes the moments that make her heart feel full. She remembers that peace is not something to be earned. With time, she discovers that balance is not about perfection but flow. Some days are heavy, others are light, but she learns to move with grace through it all. She is no longer chasing balance outside of herself. She is creating it from within. The energy she once spent trying to keep everything together is now directed inward. She begins to notice how her joy grows when she is fully present, how her peace expands when she lets go of what no longer serves her. In this, she finds freedom. As the days pass, her footing becomes steady. She feels grounded in who she is and what she wants. Her life, once pulled in so many directions, now feels aligned with her heart. And in this balance, she finds a quiet, enduring strength. She feels the tightness within her, the resistance she has carried from trying to force things into place. It is a familiar struggle, born from the belief that she must hold on, push harder, or chase after what she desires. But now, she pauses and breathes deeply, allowing herself to loosen her grip. As she lets go, she begins to trust that life has its own rhythm, one that does not require her to fight against the current. She learns to surrender, not out of defeat, but from a deep understanding that control is an illusion. In her surrender, she finds freedom. The need to chase fades as she shifts her focus inward. She no longer seeks validation, answers, or love outside of herself. Instead, she learns to align with her own truth, knowing that what is meant for her will find her when the time is right. She starts to see the beauty in the unknown, the opportunities in the unfolding. The universe, once a mystery, now feels like an ally. She feels its quiet guidance in the synchronicities, the subtle nudges, and the moments of clarity that seem to appear when she least expects them. In releasing resistance, she no longer clings to outcomes. She stops asking when and how and begins to trust the process. She understands that life is not a race to be won, but a journey to be experienced moment by moment with faith and grace. Her heart softens as she lets go of the need to force connections, opportunities, or outcomes. She sees that chasing only creates distance, while allowing creates space for the right things to flow naturally. She becomes a magnet for what resonates with her highest self. Each day becomes an act of trust. She embraces the flow of life even when it feels uncertain. She reminds herself that what is meant for her will not miss her, and what passes her by was never truly hers to hold. She replaces resistance with gratitude. Instead of focusing on what she lacks, she chooses to see the abundance around her. Every experience, even the challenges, becomes a stepping stone toward her growth and alignment. Her energy, once drained by struggle, now feels light and expansive. She learns to dance with life, moving in harmony with its rhythm instead of trying to control its steps. This dance brings her peace, clarity, and a deep sense of purpose. As she flows with life, she feels a quiet confidence growing within her. She trusts herself, the timing of her life, and the infinite wisdom of the universe. And in this trust, she discovers a profound sense of ease, knowing she is always exactly where she is meant to be. She begins to see herself clearly, not through the lens of others' opinions, but through the truth of her own heart. She realizes that her worth has never been tied to how much she gives or how much she is needed. It simply is. She is enough as she is, without proving, without earning, without striving. With every passing moment, she makes a quiet but powerful decision. She will no longer settle. She chooses love that feels steady, not fleeting. She chooses effort that matches her own, consistency that doesn't waver, and care that comes naturally, not as an afterthought, but as a reflection of mutual respect. Her days of accepting crumbs are over. She no longer takes the bare minimum and pretends it's enough. She recognizes that she deserves the full banquet of love, kindness, and connection. She has always deserved it. Now, she refuses to accept anything less. She reflects on the times when she gave too much while receiving too little. It is not with bitterness, but with clarity, that she sees how she once settled out of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of not being enough, fear of asking for more. But now she understands that fear has no place in her choices. Only love, only trust, only self-worth. She sets boundaries not to push others away, but to honor herself. These boundaries are not walls. They are invitations for those who truly value her to step forward with authenticity. She sees that those who cannot meet her standards are not her loss. They are simply not her match. Choosing self-worth means walking away when things no longer feel aligned. It means trusting that the love she deserves is out there, and that she does not need to settle for anything that feels forced, painful, or inconsistent. This choice, though difficult at times, becomes her greatest act of self-love. She stops seeking external validation, for she has found it within herself. She no longer asks, "Am I enough?" but instead declares, "I am more than enough." She lets this truth guide her decisions, her relationships, and her actions. The love she now gives herself sets the tone for every connection in her life. She shows others how to treat her by the way she treats herself, with kindness, respect, an unwavering belief in her own value. In choosing self-worth, she discovers a new kind of freedom. She is no longer bound by the need to prove herself or to shrink to fit someone else's expectations. She stands tall, grounded in the knowledge that she is deserving of a love that feels abundant and real. Each day she moves forward with grace and certainty. She trusts that the universe will meet her at her level of worth, and until it does, she is happy to walk alone, carrying her love for herself as both her compass and her home. In the quiet, she begins to hear the truths she once silenced. The stillness holds a mirror to her heart, gently revealing the places where she has been carrying pain, resentment, and wounds that have not yet healed. It is not an easy reflection to face, but she knows it is necessary for her growth. The silence is not empty. It is full of lessons. It teaches her to sit with her emotions without judgment, to allow the sadness, anger, and disappointment to flow through her without resistance. She learns that her feelings are not her enemy. They are her guides, pointing her toward the parts of herself that need the most love. As she grows in grace, she begins to forgive, not because the hurt was insignificant, but because she refuses to let it define her. Forgiveness becomes her path to freedom. She releases the heavy burdens of anger and blame, not for others, but for herself. She chooses to reclaim the energy that resentment had stolen from her. This journey is not about perfection, but progress. There are moments when the past feels heavy, and she allows herself to feel it without shame. She understands that healing is not linear, and that grace is found in the patience she gives herself along the way. She learns that forgiveness does not mean forgetting or excusing the actions that hurt her. Instead, it is a declaration that she will no longer allow those actions to have power over her. She forgives to liberate her heart, to create space for joy, and to step into her future unburdened. Each moment of silence brings her closer to herself. She begins to see how her strength has been forged through her struggles, how every scar tells a story of resilience. She grows not in spite of her pain, but because she has faced it with courage and grace. Grace teaches her to let go of the need to have all the answers. She no longer demands closure from others, but finds it within herself. She closes the chapters that no longer serve her and writes new ones, filled with hope, love, and possibility. She discovers that healing is an act of love, both for herself and for the life she is creating. She pours kindness into her wounds, not rushing the process, but honoring the time it takes. In doing so, she blossoms, her heart becoming softer yet stronger with every step. Her growth is quiet but profound. She no longer reacts to life but responds with intention. She no longer clings to what was but embraces what is and what could be. Grace becomes her foundation, her guide, and her strength. Through it all, she rises, not untouched by her past, but transformed by it. In that sacred space, she has grown into the most beautiful version of herself, strong, free, and full of grace, pure, meek, far from herself, steadfast and strong, free and full of kind. In that sacred space, she has grown into. As she steps back from what once consumed her energy, she begins to notice the vastness of the world around her. The horizon that once felt narrow now stretches endlessly, inviting her to explore, to dream, and to rediscover herself. She realizes that her life is not defined by one connection, but by the infinite possibilities waiting for her to embrace them. Her days, once focused on what she felt she was missing, now become filled with discovery. She takes up new hobbies, allowing herself to create and express without judgment, whether it's painting, dancing, or learning something entirely new. She feels the spark of excitement returning to her life. Friendships, once overlooked, take on new meaning. She reaches out, reconnecting with old friends and making space for new ones. She finds joy in sharing laughter, stories, and moments of true connection. Her world begins to feel richer, more vibrant, as she opens her heart to the people who uplift her. Her dreams, long set aside, come back into focus. She begins to ask herself what she truly wants, not in relation to anyone else, but for herself. She starts to imagine a future that is hers to shape, full of purpose and passion. Her focus shifts from what she cannot control to what she can. She pours her energy into what brings her joy and fulfillment, whether it's building her career, exploring her passions, or simply taking time to nurture her well-being. She realizes that she is the creator of her own happiness. As she expands her focus, she starts to see beauty in the little things. A sunrise, a kind word, the way the wind moves through the trees. Life in its simplest moments feels abundant. She no longer waits for joy to come to her. She seeks it out and welcomes it fully. She grows curious about the world beyond her immediate surroundings. She reads, travels, and immerses herself in experiences that challenge her perspectives and broaden her understanding. The more she learns, the more she sees how much there is to explore and how limitless her potential truly is. Her energy, once tied to one connection, now flows freely into all areas of her life. She finds balance in the way she nurtures her passions, her relationships, and herself. Each day feels like a new opportunity to grow, to try, and to thrive. She no longer feels the need to place her happiness in the hands of another. Instead, she takes full ownership of her joy. She sees how her life expands when she releases the need to hold on so tightly and allows herself to flow with life's possibilities. With each passing moment, her world feels bigger, brighter, and more full of promise. She is no longer defined by what was, but by all that could be. And in this expansion, she finds not only freedom, but also a deep, unshakable sense of peace. When the silence settles, she begins to realize that she no longer needs to wait for validation to feel worthy. The approval she once sought from you is replaced by the quiet strength that has always existed within her. She begins to see herself as the source of her own confidence, no longer tethered to anyone else's recognition. She starts to remember her power, not the loud, forceful kind, but the quiet, steady force that has carried her through every challenge she has faced. She reflects on all the times she rose, even when it felt impossible, and she begins to trust that strength more than anything outside of herself. Her sense of self grows deeper, richer, more authentic. Without the distraction of seeking validation, she tunes into her own voice, her own desires, and her own dreams. She no longer measures her worth by the attention or approval of another, but by how deeply she aligns with her truth. She takes back the energy she once gave away so freely. It is not out of bitterness, but out of love for herself. She realizes that she cannot pour into others from an empty cup, and so she begins to fill her own with care, compassion, and respect. Her confidence is no longer dependent on external affirmation. She dresses for herself, speaks for herself, and lives for herself. Each decision she makes feels like a step toward reclaiming her identity, one rooted in self-respect and self-love. As she reclaims her power, she notices how her energy shifts. Where once she felt small, she now feels expansive. Where once she felt uncertain, she now feels assured. She no longer waits for someone else to lift her up. She lifts herself. And in doing so, she finds a freedom she never knew she was missing. Her inspiration comes from within. She becomes her own muse, her own motivator, and her own cheerleader. The dreams she once put on hold now feel possible. And she takes bold steps toward creating the life she has always wanted. She stops giving others the power to define her. She is no longer swayed by the opinions or actions of anyone else, for she knows that her worth is intrinsic, unshaken by the tides of life. This unshakable knowing becomes her anchor. Reclaiming her power is not an act of rebellion, but an act of self-love. She takes responsibility for her happiness, her growth, and her peace. It is in this responsibility that she finds her greatest strength, for she realizes that she is capable of creating a life that fulfills her. She moves forward with grace and conviction, no longer looking back for answers or reassurance. She stands tall, knowing that she is whole, worthy, and enough. And in reclaiming her power, she becomes unstoppable. In the quiet of the space she has created, she begins to realize how vital clarity is in every aspect of her life. She understands that setting boundaries is not about building walls, but about honoring herself, her energy, and her values. With this newfound clarity, she sees where she has allowed herself to be stretched too thin or compromised for the sake of others. She learns to say no without guilt. Saying no is not an act of rejection, but an act of self-respect. It is a declaration that she values herself enough to protect her time, her peace, and her well-being. No longer will she overextend herself out of obligation or fear of disappointing others. Her boundaries become a reflection of her self-worth. She no longer feels the need to prove herself by sacrificing her needs for the comfort of others. Instead, she begins to make decisions from a place of self-love, knowing that when she honors herself, she can show up as her truest, most vibrant self in every. With each decision to enforce a boundary, she becomes more confident in what she will accept and what she will no longer tolerate. The relationships that once felt draining or unbalanced are now seen for what they truly are. She recognizes the importance of mutual respect, and if that is not present, she knows she has the power to walk away. This space has taught her that her time and energy are precious, and she can no longer afford to give them away to people or situations that do not align with her highest good. She knows that boundaries are not about pushing people away, but about creating a safe and nurturing environment where both she and others can thrive. Some days become worse, and other days become better, but they can be given more power or impact. She becomes clear on what nourishes her and what drains her. She no longer feels torn between others' expectations and her own needs. Her boundaries are her compass, guiding her toward the people and experiences that truly uplift her. Her relationships transform as a result of these boundaries. The people who truly respect her and value her energy begin to show up in deeper, more meaningful ways, and those who do not align with her values naturally fall away, creating space for new, more fulfilling connections to enter her life. She stops feeling guilty for taking up space or putting herself first. She recognizes that self-respect is the foundation of every healthy relationship. By setting clear boundaries, she is teaching others how to treat her, And in doing so, she creates relationships based on mutual respect, trust, and love. With her boundaries firmly in place, she feels more grounded and secure. She knows what she stands for, what she will accept, and what she will no longer tolerate. This clarity allows her to move forward with confidence, knowing that she is worthy of the love, respect, and peace she desires. As she continues to honor her boundaries, she finds a deep sense of freedom. She no longer feels pulled in every direction, but instead feels aligned, focused, and empowered to create the life she truly deserves. In the stillness, she realizes that closure does not need to come from anyone else. It can come from within her. She has spent so much time waiting for others to provide the answers, to apologize, or to give her the validation she thought she needed. But now she understands that closure is a gift she can give herself. She stops seeking external resolutions, for she knows that true peace is not dependent on anyone else's actions. The answers she has been looking for are already within her, quietly waiting to be acknowledged. She no longer needs the story to be rewritten or for someone else to make things right. She learns to release the hold that the past has on her. She makes peace with herself by learning to understand the truth of unconditional love that has been building in her life. With grace, she begins to let go of the need for closure from others. She understands that sometimes the process of healing requires her to walk away without all the pieces neatly in place. She can move forward without every question answered, trusting that she is whole, regardless of how things ended. This shift allows her to forgive, not to condone the hurt or justify what happened, but to free herself. Forgiveness becomes her way of reclaiming her power and peace, knowing that holding on to resentment only keeps her tethered to the past. She gives herself the freedom to release what no longer serves her. She no longer waits for someone else to give her permission to move on. She grants herself that permission, knowing that her worth and peace are not dependent on anyone else's decisions or actions. She chooses to close the chapter in her own heart, not because it was easy, but because she deserves the peace that comes with letting go. In allowing closure within herself, she moves forward with dignity. She carries the lessons from her past with her, but she no longer allows them to define her. She acknowledges her pain, honors her growth, and steps into her future unburdened by what was. She finds comfort in knowing that closure is not a one-time event, but a continual process. Each day, she reaffirms her decision to heal, to let go, and to choose peace. She creates a space within her heart where healing can unfold naturally, without force or haste. As she embraces closure, she feels a lightness she hasn't known in a long time. She releases the weight of unanswered questions and unrealized expectations, knowing that she has everything she needs within herself to move forward. Her heart, once heavy with the need for external closure, now feels whole and complete. She understands that closure is not about finality. It is about creating a new beginning. She allows herself to step into that new beginning with grace, knowing she has the power to define her own path. With every step forward, she carries with her the wisdom of the past, but she no longer lets it control her. She moves on with peace, knowing that the closure she has given herself is the most empowering gift she could have ever received. She stands at the threshold of her life, knowing that every ending holds the seed of a new beginning. The door that has closed behind her is not a sign of defeat, but a reminder that life is always shifting, always creating new paths. She has learned that nothing is permanent, and each change brings with it the opportunity for something better, something more aligned with who she is becoming. As she steps away from what no longer serves her, she doesn't look back with regret. Instead, she looks forward with anticipation. She trusts that the universe, in its infinite wisdom, is always guiding her toward what is meant for her. She feels an exciting sense of possibility with every step she takes into the unknown. The space left behind by what has ended is not empty. It is fertile ground for new experiences, new connections, and new opportunities. She embraces this space, knowing it is preparing her for the life she has always dreamed of, one full of love, joy, and abundance. She understands that life is not a series of losses, but a series of openings. When one door closes, another opens wider. She no longer fears change, because she knows that every shift leads her closer to her highest good. Her heart is open, receptive to the miracles that are always unfolding around her. She no longer feels that she has to force or chase anything. Instead, she learns to lean into life with trust, allowing what is meant for her to come naturally without resistance. As she opens herself to new possibilities, she feels a sense of ease and flow that she hasn't felt before. The weight of worry, doubt, and fear begins to dissolve, replaced by a deep sense of trust in the unfolding of her life. She no longer tries to control the outcome. She simply allows herself to be part of the journey. Knowing that freedom can certainly come easily, but it lays up the landscape for beautiful things to come. With every new possibility, she steps closer to the love and joy that were always meant for her. She recognizes that love is not something she must seek, it is something she must allow. The love she seeks is already within her, and it flows effortlessly into her life when she opens herself to it. Her dreams, once distant and unclear, now feel closer than ever. She knows that the path to abundance is not about striving, but about aligning with what is already in her heart. With every moment, she is moving toward the life she was always destined to live. She is no longer afraid to embrace the unknown because she knows that the unknown is simply a space where the magic of possibility lives. She feels a deep connection to the life force within her. And with every step, she moves closer to the joy and abundance she deserves. As she opens to new possibilities, she realizes that the best is yet to come. She has released what was, and in doing so has made room for all that is waiting to be revealed. With an open heart and a clear mind, she steps forward, ready to receive the love, joy, and abundance that are already hers. When you stop reaching out, you create the space she needs to return to herself, to reclaim her power, and to reconnect with the deep well of love and wisdom that resides within her. She no longer seeks validation from the outside because she has discovered that the greatest source of love and confidence has always been within her. In that sacred silence, she finds the freedom to grow, to evolve, and to become the woman she was always meant to be. She begins to see the infinite possibilities life has to offer. No longer bound by the need to hold on to what no longer serves her, she opens her heart to new opportunities, new experiences, and new connections. With each step, she moves closer to the love, joy, and abundance that are already hers. She becomes a magnet for what aligns with her truth, knowing that when one door closes, another one opens wide, inviting her to walk through with grace. As she learns to honor her boundaries and trust herself, she discovers that her peace does not rely on anyone else's actions. She gives herself the gift of closure, knowing that true healing comes from within. No longer waiting for answers from others, she finds the resolution she seeks by honoring her own heart and moving forward with dignity. She understands that her healing journey is hers alone to navigate, and she embraces the process with love and patience. With every choice she makes, she steps further into her power, letting go of resistance and choosing to flow with the natural rhythm of life. She knows that everything she needs to thrive is already within her, and by trusting this truth, she allows herself to expand into the fullness of her being. She no longer needs to chase love or approval because she has become the embodiment of those things. Her presence is a reflection of the love she has for herself. In the end, she becomes the woman who walks through life with clarity, strength, and grace. She no longer waits for external validation, knowing that her worth is inherent and undeniable. She steps into every new chapter with the knowing that she is deserving of all the love, joy, and abundance that the universe has in store for her. She has become the source of her own happiness, and in doing so, she creates a life filled with peace, love, and endless possibilities.